This is gonna be a rough one. Alright, let's go. If you clicked on this video, you most likely know who AlphaDream is, what their work is, and what's going on. I'm sure you've all heard the news. I decided to wait until the mass hysteria calmed down a bit before I would make a big video on the topic. And by waited, I mean I ended up somehow preoccupied for over 8 months after it happened, and am now horribly out of date. AlphaDream has gone bankrupt. They've gone under. On the first day of October in 2019, they announced that they had a debt of 400 million yen, which is approximately 3.7 million US dollars for American viewers. On that same day, the studio went defunct, with the Mario and Luigi series and all of its characters falling into the hands of Nintendo. How could things get this bad? Well, I could probably do some explaining. In this video, I want to cover the bankruptcy, what I believe led to the bankruptcy, as well as the legacy, my experiences with the series, and what the Mario and Luigi series meant to me. I hope you can enjoy this slightly depressing, albeit loving look back on what I consider to be the absolute greatest part of the Mario franchise. However, if you're already up to speed in the story behind AlphaDream's bankruptcy and just want to hear my introspection on these games and what they mean to me, feel free to just skip to the timestamp that should be on screen right now, if I have any semblance of video editing skill, that is. Starting off with why I think they went bankrupt, I want to call special attention, very, very special attention, to the two 3DS remakes. The sales for them were abysmal, honestly, completely and utterly abysmal, with the Bowser's Inside Story remake, in particular, being one of the worst selling Mario games of all time. And the Superstar Saga remake, it only sold marginally better. Paper Jam only broke about 1 million sales. The failure of these games, as well as AlphaDreams themselves quoting high development costs for an attempted HD title, are generally the main reasons for them closing. Meaning that they were most likely working on a Switch title, most likely a Mario and Luigi game as well, but the cost of HD game development was just far too much for them to manage, leading to the incredible debt. This is incredibly heartbreaking and ultimately super disappointing, honestly. Now, why did these games sell so poorly? They were remakes of two of the most popular and beloved games in the franchise. Well, this may be conjecture on my end, but I think there's a couple of main contributing factors. For one, the 3DS remakes of Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story were released on the Nintendo 3DS. Big surprise. But with Superstar Saga coming out the same year as Nintendo's new blockbuster console, the Nintendo Switch, and the Bowser's Inside Story remake coming out 2 years after the console had already released and well into the 3DS's deathbed. This game is one of the final big Nintendo games to be produced for the console. The only one releasing after it, to my knowledge, is Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. Horrific timing. I recall quite a large number of people outright not wanting to buy the game because it was a late 3DS release, along with the whole kill the 3DS movement going a while back, if you can remember that. But what about Paper Jam? That game was in 2015 and the 3DS was still going very strong by that point. Well, I'd say that game's lower sales would be more due to the climate of the Mario fanbase at the time. More specifically, the Mario RPG fanbase. This was a very touchy time for the fanbase, to say the least. They were very irritable due to many people believing that the series was overall becoming much more bland and repetitive, and ultimately neutered the creativity department, with phrases such as generic toads and repetitive environments being frequent critiques of the series at the time. Not to mention the fucking obliteration of the Paper Mario franchise still being very fresh in the minds of so many. So seeing Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi crossing over with similar environments to the main series and lots of similar toads being featured in the trailer had the fanbase very apprehensive, some outright in a rage. I distinctly remember a lot of people saying they were going to boycott or outright not purchase the game because of the gentrification of the RPG series. Another inciting spark would be when someone big on the development team of Paper Mario Color Splash said that the existence of Mario and Luigi meant that Paper Mario didn't need to be an RPG anymore. Oh man, this set flames to the fanbases. It basically started a war between them. You can still see some of this hatred leaking through the replies of the tweets talking about AlphaDream's bankruptcy, at least when it first happened back in October. Some Paper Mario fans had seen this as an opportunity for the series to return. As a fan of both Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi, this is incredibly sad. The death of one amazing franchise should not lead to the recovery of another, and that is definitely not how it will go down at all, under any circumstance. As an aside, I really hope the Origami King is good. Losing Mario and Luigi is one thing, but if I have to deal with the Paper Mario series being fucking brutalized any further, that'll just be too much for me, man. Way too much. So, to cap it all off, I believe a mixture of factors such as the state of the Mario fanbase at the time, the release window next to a brand new fucking console, the games being on a console that had already breathed its last breath, and the want for the games to be on Switch instead of the 3DS led to the remakes ultimately selling poorly. And I wouldn't be surprised if poor marketing was also a factor too. I not once saw a single ad for any Mario and Luigi game after Paper Jam on TV. On top of the two games selling poorly, it seems like they were at work with a full HD title as well, which proved the cost was just far too much for them. Ultimately, a lack of budget and poor sales did AlphaDream in. Now that they're gone, let's reminisce on what they've done. AlphaDream was founded in January of 2000, initially named AlphaStar, a motley little studio made of Major League X Square members. They developed for Nintendo, becoming a relatively important second-party developer for them. They initially made some Japanese exclusive Game Boy Color games, and are also relatively known for their Hamtaro games. However, the big Superstar Slam was released for the GBA in 2003, an RPG spin-off of the Super Mario series, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. It was a hit, and it became well beloved within the Mario fanbase, even to this day. With this winning formula, they continued to pump out more amazing RPGs. They would release Partners in Time on the DS in 2005, Bowser's Inside Story in 2009, which would become the absolute best-selling game of all time, the critical and commercial height of the series. They would then release Dream Team in 2013 on the 3DS, the year of Luigi, Paper Jam in 2015, and the two remakes of Superstar Saga and Inside Story in 2017 and 2019 respectively. The Inside Story remake shall remain as the last game that they developed independently. Now that I've gone over the history, I think it's time to talk about these games and what each one means to me. Starting not with the first game in the series, Superstar Saga, but the first game I played in the series. My introduction to Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story. When I was young, only about 8 years old at the time, I finally received my first Nintendo DS Lite, the dark blue model specifically. I bought it my own money and a trade-in of a broken DS my cousin had given to me. I still have this puppy to this day actually, although it could definitely be in better shape. Besides the point, I needed the games for my brand new little system, so my parents said they'd buy me 2 games. What did I choose? At the time, I had just gotten to Mario Galaxy 1, so I decided to get 2 games from the Mario series. I was a big Mario fan back in the day. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Mini-Land Mayhem, which is the first one, and yeah, who remembers that series? But the important one here was that I also chose Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. The whole car ride home, I was reading the back of the box of the games and frantically paging through the manuals in order to prepare myself for what I was about to get myself into. Something I absolutely loved doing as a kid, and still love doing to this day, honestly. I love physical manuals. It makes me kind of sad that they've been pretty dead for some time now. Anyways, the second I got home, the first game I popped into my brand new DS was Inside Story, and immediately, it was a roller coaster. Whoa, what the hell is this? A government meeting over a goddamn inflation fetish disease plaguing the Mushroom Kingdom? What the hell is this? Okay, this Bowser. I know who he is. I'll kick his lizard ass, no problem. Whoa, what is this? I'm standing still with these fucking icons. What do you mean I'm not platforming? That's right, folks. Inside Story was my first RPG ever. I had so much as ever heard the term. I was 8. Turn-based battles were completely foreign to me. Before that, I was so acclimated to 3D platformers and being able to move in a 3D space. The concept of standing completely fucking still mid-fight was so strange to me. It was a learning experience. And at first thought, my child self thought I bought the wrong game, a bootleg or something. But I stuck through. The music was speaking to me. Okay, I guess I'll set the bop on his head. That makes sense. Oh, I'm not completely stationary mid-battle. I can jump to avoid attacks. That makes sense. Platforming. I'm not completely out in the water. Some recognizable elements came up. I was able to come to grips with the mechanics. I kicked Bowser to the fucking curb and continued on with my day. More plot shit, and then I'm playing as Bowser? What? Playing as the big bad was such a crazy idea to me, but damn if it wasn't cool. Look at me burning entire trees to the ground. Smokey would be disgusted. Who's this weird robe, dude? Bowser, bro, what are you doing? Don't eat that mushroom, you goddamn Neanderthal! And with that action, I realized Bowser isn't the villain of this story. I was amazed. Bowser wasn't the big baddie in a fucking Mario game? What timeline am I in? Instead, I'm dealing with this bean motherfucker named Farfel. It's one of my favorite villains in the damn series, by the way. And honestly, in general, I love this stupid green baked bean. This man is a pretty cool YouTuber, too, actually. I was hooked, absolutely captivated, something I never expected with my initial shock. I was having fun, the story was interesting, the characters had great, defined personality. The writing was top-notch, it had me laughing at every turn, the environments were varied, I was living the dream. I have amazingly potent memories of my initial experience. But I think those memories I'd want to share in an inside story review specifically. Sorry. But I'll make sure that video comes someday. That aside, I fell in love with this game. I still have my original save file, so many goddamn hours. I'm over level 40. I played through this game at least 4 to 5 times by this point. I fell in love. And once I found out there were more games to this series, something I actually didn't find out until much later due to not having immediate access to the internet, what game did I find out first? Partners in Time, of course. Partners in Time took some doing to get, trying to convince an unwilling parent to buy it for you for a few months. That takes time. After excitedly paging through the manual, I started playing, and once again, I fell in love. The characters and the amazing comedic writing was still there. The 4-character gameplay was super fun. The basics that I love from Bowser's Inside Story, they were all there. And I was living it. I played this game just as many times as I have played Bowser's Inside Story. While playing, though, I noticed something. The plot. It was dark. Darker than any Mario game I had played previously. I was still young at the time, so a lot of it was a little disturbing to me. The shoes were a horrifying presence. You watch them wipe out an entire happy Christmas-themed village like it was nothing. You can enter one of the fucking facilities where they harvest toads and use them for energy like they were nothing more than a fucking Slurpee. What they did to the Yoshis? It was shocking to the little child me. The shoes being the ever-present looming threat that they were helped push them as one of the most interesting villainous entities in the entire series. It helped elevate this game even higher. The Shoobs and their actions make this game and are a fantastic example of a well-done antagonistic force in a Mario game. One which I honestly wish the rest of the Mario franchise at large took for example more often, honestly. After Partners in Time though, I wouldn't be able to play another Mario and Luigi game until Dream Team was released. I adore this game, and it's probably still either my absolute favorite or my second favorite behind Bowser's Inside Story. This game took everything I loved about the series and kept it moving forward. The fantastic plot, writing, characters, the music was amazing. I loved the new 2.5D aesthetic. The dream theming was inspired, and seeing the events of the previous games lead to Bowser becoming a significantly more competent villain. Oh man, it made me so happy. The gameplay was taken to the logical extreme, and the absolute insanity brought by fights in Dream World are a sight to behold. A fantastic continuation to an amazing series. I was hooked all over again. As I waited for the inevitable next title in the series, I finally managed to track down and obtain a copy of Superstar Saga on the Game Boy Advance. The only Mario and Luigi game I hadn't played by that point. And by track down, I mean it was given to me by a friend, the homie Shadow Jr. 45 actually. Go sub to his channel, I love that man. Along with a handful of other GBA games he gave me. Funnily enough, he didn't even know it was Superstar Saga, and it was the only game in his collection that he had given me that was missing the sticker on its cartridge. So you could only imagine my immense excitement and surprise when I unknowingly popped in the game I had been hunting down for so long, but completely unable to find. I was so happy. Playing Superstar Saga for the first time was a joy as well, despite it being a little bit more dated than the other games in the series. Everything I'd come to love about the series was still here in full swing. Fantastic villains, seeing the introduction of Farfel was great, and I just had a joyous time all around. It really helped peak my hype for Paper Jam even further. Despite the negativity surrounding that game during its lead up to release, I was still extremely excited for it and pre-ordered it as soon as I had the chance. I even got those weird papercraft replicas of the papercraft battles in the game from pre-ordering it. Although I don't have them together anymore, they're just kind of shoved haphazardly into a bag. Because I want to keep them for collection reasons, but I also can't be arsed to put them back together again because they're a massive pain in the ass because of how they're built. Anyways, playing Paper Jam was just as enjoyable an experience as I could have hoped for. The gameplay progressed even further, and honestly to date, Paper Jam may still have the best gameplay in the series. The writing was still just as great as before, and the interactions between characters and the paper counterparts were really enjoyable too. It made for some really fun banter. While Bowser being the main villain of the game without a special twist like there was in Dream Team was a little disappointing. Due to the series managing to have new but still completely compelling villains up to this point. I have to say, though, that if we had to have a Bowser villain story, they could not have made a more enjoyable one. Bowser is at his absolute best in the RPG games, and that was shown fantastically here. He is amazing. While the game wasn't as good as Dream Team or Inside Story in my opinion, it wasn't anywhere near disappointing for me, and I was eagerly awaiting the next titles in the series. You can imagine my shock though when the next game announced was a remake of Superstar Saga. I think the main game of the remake is the best version of the game, and I had a hell of an enjoyable time replaying and getting all nostalgic of the remixes and giving this classic a second win in my mind. It went from my least favorite Mario and Luigi to probably my third favorite overall. After a great time with the remake, I went back to eagerly awaiting the next new title. You can imagine my shock though, once again, when instead of a new title on Switch, there was another remake, but not Partners in Time, Bowser's Inside Story? Obviously, I lost my mind in excitement at first. One of my favorite games of all goddamn time was being remade. Hell yeah! Even though I didn't really think it was needed, and I would have preferred Partners in Time, I wasn't gonna turn on a remake of Inside Story, no way in hell. Although various financial issues at the time did make me need to hold off on buying it, I had to wait several months to buy the game. And around the time I did purchase it, the news of AlphaDream's demise had surfaced, and to this date I still haven't played it, actually. With how much Bowser's Inside Story means to me as a game, I want to be able to fully enjoy my time with this remake, so I'm waiting for the right time to do so, when I won't be distracted by other games, other life issues, and honestly, I also wanted to get this video out first. Yeah, various issues held this video up too, so here we are now. But be aware, when I inevitably do play the remake, I plan to make a video on my thoughts after finishing it. Maybe not a review per se, but definitely a first impressions video. Now that I've recounted my personal experience with this series, I'm thinking it's about time that I start to wrap up this little video by talking about what this series meant to me, and what its potential death means to the Mario franchise overall, for me, again, personally. The Mario and Luigi games were always a place of solace for me. Charming, enjoyable, replayable, endlessly fun games that I could pick up, get fully immersed and enthralled in, and enjoy over and over again. I've played Inside Story and Partners at Time a collective at least 10 times by now. Whenever my childhood started to get a little rough and I was stuck on a log car ride or I was moving back and forth between houses, I had these games booted up and I was sinking time into them, loving every second. Everything I loved about the series was at its best in these games, and honestly, even things I wanted from the main series could be found here. I've always thought the Mario series has suffered a little bit of an extreme problem of being stale, boring, and frankly kinda generic. The bland bread of video games in a lot of places, but bland was the furthest thing from what you could call the Mario and Luigi series. This series alone helps rank the Mario franchise among my top 10 favorites, where it probably wouldn't otherwise, despite my long childhood attachment to the Mario franchise. Now, this part's gonna get a little negative overall, so sorry in advance, but now that the Mario and Luigi series has potentially gone for good, I'm finding myself less interested in the Mario franchise as a whole. After being increasingly disappointed and burned out by new releases in the franchise ever since the last major game I enjoyed was Galaxy 2, and after watching several other parts of the franchise I loved, such as Sports Mix and especially Paper Mario getting mistreated as badly as they were, watching the Wario series quite literally cease to exist, Mario and Luigi became the only part of the franchise I could look forward to a guaranteed enjoyable experience. Now that I don't even have that guaranteed enjoyment, what else is there for me, honestly? Sure, there's the occasional spin-off that catches my eye when something truly unique is done, like Mario plus Rabbids or the Luigi's Mansion games. Of course I'm gonna try Origami King, as I still yearn for a good Paper Mario game after Super. The franchise as a whole has lost its luster to me, and honestly, it has just started to make me feel more jaded as a whole. AlphaDream consistently delivered their own amazing and unique brand of charm in the writing and world of these games, and I'm afraid that if these games are picked up by another studio or handled by Nintendo themselves, they would lose what made them fantastic in the first place, and just become another gentrified part of this gentrified series. But even if Mario and Luigi are never touched again, Even if it's dragged from the grave and suffers a fate akin to Paper Mario when that franchise was sent to the fucking oblivion known as Sticker Star, I will never forget what came before. I will never forget the fantastic journeys AlphaDream gave us, the amazing characters, the fantastic writing, the amazing soundtracks composed by the goddess Yoko Shimomura herself, the enjoyment that these games gave me in some of my darkest times, and I will sure as fuck never forget what Mario and Luigi meant to me. I only have one thing left to say. Thank you, AlphaDream. Thank you for everything.